Hi, everyone, and welcome to another K6 Office Hours. I'm Nicole van der Hoeven.
I'm Paul Baylog.
I'm Pawel Suwala.
And I'm Robin. Hello.
Welcome. Today Paul and I have two of our bosses, really. So
Yeah.
I hope it goes really well.
I'm going to try to be on good behavior for this hour.
Yeah, come on, Paul. You really need to shape up. I've gotten
I
a few
know.
comments. It's really difficult sometimes. But anyway, Pawel.
Play well with others.
Yeah, oops. It's out now. But Pawel, can you introduce yourself and what you do at K6?
So I'm Pawel Suwala. I'm CTO at K6, which means that I'm responsible for the R&D part of the organization, all of the technical stuff. I believe we have something like 40 engineers now on the team with many different managers building all of this great stuff that we have.
And Robin, I actually put, I think in the description, I put you down as CEO of K6, which you still are, but you are also the VP of product at Grafana. What does that entail?
So the VP of product means that I lead the product management organization at Grafana. So we have a team of product managers that work on our different products that we offer. And I also have the design function, so UX design reporting to me, and also still K6. But proportionally, I spend most of my time in the product management organization, so helping our different cross-functional teams that build Grafana Labs products to be successful.
Yeah, so very recently we had our internal company or team-wide meetup called CrocoCon. CrocoCon, it's like on my shirt. But you both had very interesting presentations about, I guess, where we've been and also where we're going as a team within now a larger organization. And I was hoping that you both could share some of that with the people who might be using K6 and weren't on the K6 team and didn't see those presentations. I think like there's a lot to be proud of for what we've been able to accomplish as a team so far.
Definitely. So I guess I can talk a little bit to what I spoke about. So I spoke about the overall integration of K6 both as a company and as a product, and how that fits into the overall Grafana Labs strategy and organization. And obviously K6 in the larger sort of Grafana context, K6 is one of the products that Grafana Labs offers as a company. And we talked a little bit about where K6 fits into the larger story that the other products are also part of. And if you think of the software development lifecycle, where you have to the left side, if you think of it as a horizontal x-axis, K6 is further to the left, typically closer to developers and testers that do a lot of their work before the system or changes to a system gets put into production. And Grafana itself tends to be mostly used for sort of production observability. It can also, of course, be used for pre-production. And how sort of K6 fits into that sort of larger story of helping customers be more preventative and finding capacity problems, but also performance regression problems prior to introducing their changes into the production system. So it sort of like neatly fits into the larger story of Grafana Labs, sort of offering value throughout the software development lifecycle. So yeah, I think that mostly summarizes what I talked about, I think.
Yeah, Pawel, I'm curious, before we go into the things that we've done, that we've accomplished in the last year, what do you think are some of the major engineering struggles that we've faced?
Major engineering struggles. So K6 Cloud is its own product suite and an offering and a fully fledged product, right? So I think the major challenge is how to marry this like finished to some degree product to another platform, which is Grafana, which also is a complete cloud offering, right? So I think that's the primary challenge, and that's what we spend a lot of time on. How do we do it well so we don't lose the value of K6 and we gain all of the value from being integrated into the suite of products that are very strong in their respective areas, right? So K6, as it becomes the testing product of Grafana, it needs this integration needs to be done carefully, not to hurt the existing users and customers, but also quickly enough so we don't lose the opportunity of integrating and getting the larger value. I think the balance of doing this quickly and correctly is the primary challenge.
Yeah, Paul and I actually showed this slide as well a few episodes ago, and this is everything that we've done in the first half of this year. So this is already a few months out of date, but still, there's a lot that we got done. And you both already talked about this first part, how we're moving closer to Grafana, and obviously trying to play better with Grafana projects. Robin, is there anything you can share about what that's going to look like in the future? Or you talked about, Pawel also mentioned marrying with, it's funny, it's always like a relationship, this love affair between K6 and Grafana. What does this marrying of products look like?
So yeah, I think what we're trying to accomplish is having the different products that Grafana Labs offers, including K6, sort of elevate each other, right? So making sure that the sum is greater than the parts. So effectively, what it means is that we're looking at various ways to integrate more natively with the other products in the suite, so that you can, for example, one of the big things we have discussed a lot at K6 over the years is how we can be better at directing our users and customers to the sort of root causes of issues that we detect when you run a test, right? It's like we can tell you if you're having a performance problem or concurrency problem with your system. That's quite obvious when you run a K6 test. But how can you go further? How can we tell you what is causing what you're seeing basically from the outside perspective? How can you go to the inside of your system and dig deeper in terms of finding the root cause? So that's one of the big things that I think isn't really a long mental exercise to realize that Grafana products have obvious benefits here. They're strong sort of in the observability side, and K6 is a good, of course, like biased opinion, but it's a good tool for running tests, right? So combining those two values can be very, very powerful if done right. And I think that's the big sort of opportunity and value add that the combination can provide.
Yeah, I'm glad you caught yourself and didn't say load testing tool, because that's a trigger for It's not testing,
Yeah.
it's reliability testing.
Good job.
Yeah.
Although we still call ourselves load testing, because I believe that's the primary use case for K6 today of our users. But as we grow and as we expand the functionality, this label will become less and less true. It's 90% true maybe today. But as we have expanded with browser automation and front-end testing, that's no longer load testing, right? The K6 browser allows developers to test the front ends. They allow to test the user experience. So that's not quite right label. But as we all know, the browser testing functionality is still in beta, so we haven't integrated it into core. And therefore, I think the label of load testing is still mostly correct, although I'm internally advocating to call it a reliability testing product rather than load testing.
Yeah.
Load testing was the seed.
Exactly. But I think that's an important point, right? Like how we view things internally and sort of like what the direction is different from what we can communicate, because like obviously we want to understand and have everybody on the same page and know where we are going as a company building the stuff that we're building. But it's very hard to defend saying that you do something more than you're actually doing, right, in the open. So like the plan when we started K6 was always to sort of support more testing use cases than just load testing, which honestly a lot of users and a lot of customers have already discovered that naturally since providing developers, smart people in general, with APIs, they do wonderful things. But it's always felt like it would have been too much to say that we are this. What do you usually say? This Swiss Army knife?
I call it a reliability testing platform, but yeah, Swiss Army knife is a good one that I've heard a lot of opposition to. But I truly believe that I've made this story and this anecdote in the company quite popular, that I want everyone to feel that K6 is like this really well-made tool, that if an engineer takes a tool in their hand, they feel that the quality of the tool is excellent and they want to continue using it. Just like, you get a really good hammer or really good screwdriver in your hand, it's a pleasure to use it. If you get a tool that is really like not good quality, a poor plastic, a little blunt, you don't want to use it. It's no joy in having it. But K6 should be this like excellent quality tool that you can use for many different things. So I called it a Swiss Army knife of reliability testing. But we shall see if this is going to be the official slogan.
It's sort of false though, right? Because like the tools on a Swiss Army knife don't tend to be the best quality tool for any specific job.
I also prefer multi-tool. Like this is a multi-tool, but it's neither Swiss nor for the army. So if anything, we should be Swedish. A Swedish multi-tool. But Pawel already knows this, but I'm not 100% sold on reliability testing platform yet for K6, just because I feel like that doesn't really encompass functional testing. Which is funny because Pawel, I know maybe this is a good time to talk about something that you've personally contributed to this list. I mean, you've contributed a lot of things, but you started and you thought of and actually created K6 Chai.js. Can you talk to us a little bit about what that is?
Right. So I think front-end developers specifically know Chai as a I guess framework for functional testing. So Chai is a well-established library that many JavaScript developers use for testing, and I wanted K6 engineers or K6 users to have the same experience of flexibility of that Chai provides. But by default, Chai couldn't really run in K6 because we have different primitives on the background. So we don't do JavaScript asserts, we do K6 checks, and we do K6 thresholds and so on. So I added maybe a compatibility layer to Chai.js so it works well with K6, and therefore gives this TDD way of structuring your code, which is so familiar to many front-end developers. So I believe it's not as popular as it could be because I think people don't discover it very well. I added just limited documentation to this, but I handed it over recently to our front-end team, so they are working on a blog post right now. I think Ben is doing that. And we soon are going to have better docs and better tutorial on this.
Good. Yeah, I didn't even realize that. So that was it kind of came about because I guess the Goja engine couldn't support or interpret the same objects that Chai was using, I guess.
Right. Well, no, it could interpret them. It's just that you wouldn't have it registered as a check in K6. So at the end of the test, it wouldn't really show you anything. It would, do console logs, but that's not so useful because K6 doesn't recognize them. So we needed to inject a little bit of check calls and thresholds by default.
Okay. Yeah, I thought maybe it was something to do with some of the. I know that recently we had some updates with 0.40 that now the JavaScript, what is it, classes are now fully supported and everything. So I thought, well, maybe that's part of what the issue was originally. So.
No, that work is actually quite exciting, but it has nothing to do with Chai. But that's true. We now support natively classes, and we support more of JavaScript ES6 standards. And soon we are going to be dropping the internal bubble transpiler, and therefore K6 will become even quicker than it is today.
Yay! So in this list too, there's a lot of things that are based on moving closer to Grafana, like on the infrastructure side. Internally, we've been, I think one of the biggest challenges that we've had to overcome is also just adopting a lot of Grafana projects internally, where we've moved to all the Grafana things, even though we were already using a lot of them actually. But that coincided with the Kubernetes migration. We were just talking, Paul and I were just talking to one of our engineers, Carlos, and he said that that was really difficult to juggle a Kubernetes migration on top of moving to another observability stack. But also, Robin, you were talking about going closer to bringing the two experiences together, Grafana Cloud in particular and K6 Cloud. Now, I think this K6 Cloud app, that started as the data source, the K6 data source, right? But now it's sort of become the cloud app. Where is this going? Are we going to still continue to have, like Pawel mentioned, your separate products for K6 Cloud, and we'll also have K6 OSS, but we'll also have Grafana Cloud now, potentially?
Yes, exactly. So it started several years ago at this point, where we started developing a data source for Grafana. And obviously, sort of post acquisition, we started looking at how we could turn that into a more sort of native integrated experience in Grafana Cloud. And so we started the Grafana K6 app, which basically tries to or aims to replicate the experience that we provide today in K6 Cloud, but inside of Grafana Cloud, where we can also integrate with sort of other features in Grafana, as well as the other products that we have in the larger sort of Grafana product suite.
Yeah, we had Edgar, or was it Edvinus? He was talking about that app, and they've been doing a lot of nice work on that. It's really a lot of good parity with the K6 Cloud. And it also gives the opportunity to use dark mode for K6.
Yeah. Major feature enhancement. Yes. Yeah. That's been requested several times. I think that all the iterations we've done of K6 Cloud, like the current one being version 5, I think. I think we've had requests throughout the years for adding dark mode, and we've always resisted. And here we are. Now we have dark mode in Grafana. Yeah.
That's so funny.
This is the perfect opportunity.
Yeah, and we get it for free.
Yes, even Mihail is chiming in with dark mode. Yeah, it was. We did just have Edgar.
This is the reason Pawel. We got acquired, right? This is the entire point of acquisition, just to get dark mode.
Oh yeah, just to get dark mode. Yeah.
Clearly, I mean, what else was there? Yeah, obviously it wasn't going to happen without us getting acquired. Grafana just has dark mode all the time. It's awesome. Something we could learn from them for sure. But what is the ideal experience, you think, Robin? Like from K6 OSS, we can already do K6 Cloud, and then the run scripts through the CLI, but then it actually runs them on K6 Cloud. Is the idea that it'll still run in K6 Cloud, but also the results will be piped out to Grafana Cloud, so people can basically pick and choose which one they want to use?
So I think this is going to be like a multi-step, change and journey for us as a company and as a team building the product. But the initial focus will be on sort of duplicating the experience inside of Grafana while still having the K6 Cloud experience running at the same time. And then it's likely as we sort of reach parity on the Grafana Cloud side, that will slowly start to invest more time building things on the Grafana platform, because that's where we can integrate more tightly with the other Grafana products. And at some point, we'll likely sort of sunset K6 Cloud, but that's not been decided at all yet when that's going to happen, right? So that's some decision that we need to take at some further point into the future. But right now, like, I think the focus is on trying to provide a good sort of front end experience, right? While the backend systems will still be run by the K6 Cloud platform for now.
Right. Yeah, I think that's the way to go. And since we are one company now, K6 and Grafana, we should have one cloud, just not to be confusing and just to have a coherent user experience. So that's the plan, to have a first class, like K6 to be the first class citizen within the Grafana stack, and that's the goal. And there is a journey to go there and achieve that goal. But certainly we are going to be talking about it probably 1 year from now still.
But at least hopefully we'll be, writing natively to Prometheus from K6 OSS. So.
Wow, I see how you snuck that in there.
Yeah.
It's what I do. It's what I do.
So smooth.
Smooth like butter.
So, let's talk about that.
Commit to things. So, Pawel, since it was so smoothly mentioned, what about Prometheus Remote Write? When is it going to be part of K6 Core?
Probably very, very soon. So I don't want to make a commitment on this call, because I believe the K6 open source team is listening, and they will maybe not appreciate me making commitments on their behalf. But we hope to release the Prometheus output in K6 Core very soon. Maybe next release, maybe a release after that. But that's the goal, that Prometheus should be the default output from K6, and we will make all of the efforts to make this the standard across the Grafana products, right? So all of the existing Grafana products use Prometheus metrics by default, and K6 has its own format that we developed ourselves within the company that was inspired by Prometheus, but not quite Prometheus. So we are now making changes to make it exactly the same.
Yeah, that's one that I'm actually looking forward to, really, because those that know me on the extension side, that we have the Prometheus remote write support, but as an extension. So unfortunately, folks have to compile in the that code for the output. With XK6. We try to make it friendly as much as we can. We, it's still on me to do some of that documentation. I keep saying that every week, but make things a little bit easier for folks. But
there's a lot to document. To be fair, there's always more documentation.
It's not
but
on.
No, it is.
I'm also super excited about this. The Prometheus output in K6 will enable so many new use cases, and the standardization of the protocol is going to bring lots of benefits. And I know there was tremendous amount of work put in by many developers to make this happen. And we also fixed multiple different tickets in GitHub by creating this output. So yeah, I'm looking forward. It's going to be really significant release of K6 when we have it.
I think Mihail said that he was going to do it tonight.
Oh.
Is he merging to master tonight?
Yes, I think he's got it all sorted out, you know, all of our issues, dark mode included.
Yeah.
I'm joking. I'm just teasing Mihail.
You're joking, but we were not far away from merging to the master branch just days ago. So it is a joke, but maybe it's a reality too.
Can you talk about some of these use cases that you mentioned that having Prometheus output will enable?
Right. So I think the primary benefit of this, outside of course, having Prometheus, is that we are going to also have aggregation. So K6 outputs by default output every single sample. So every single request creates multiple metrics and multiple samples, and every single sample goes to the output, which often overloads the receiving backend. So like InfluxDB or Prometheus even today are often totally load tested by K6, just sending all of this data. With this change that we are making now, we are going to output aggregated samples. So for example, 1 per second rather than often 10,000 per second, which will make it much easier to query and much lighter on the backend infrastructure of our users. We have also fixed multiple bugs and small usability things that I don't recall right now.
And also on the plugin side, that's changed a lot as well since I joined K6. So before it was just K6, and there wasn't really any way that you could extend it. But now you can either, well, not now, but about a year or so ago, I think, maybe 2 years ago, we had XK6, which is an ecosystem for extending it. And that still has issues, right? Because as Paul said, you have to create a custom binary. And now we're moving to K6 experimental modules. So we talked about that, I think, just last week. Experimental modules make it easier to try out new, what used to be extensions. Now they're just going to be bundled into core, but in a way that you don't need to use it if you don't want to. Right. Is that going to be for now? We've only seen 3 of them become experimental modules. But what do you think is the future for that? Are we going to try to do that for all of the most popular ones, or only the ones that we control, or how is that going to work?
Right. Yeah. So in the past, as you said, Nicole, we had only K6 code base, and if you wanted to have something in K6, you needed to create a pull request, and the pull request needed to be of sufficient quality, have enough tests and so on. So the threshold to contribute to the K6 core has been very high, and the expectation on quality of code and on the correctness of code has been very high. So we weren't accepting that many contributions. And therefore, it created this problem that people really want to contribute, or they have really a use case that they want to use K6 for, but we don't accept that use case in the core. So that's why we created this ecosystem of extensions. And that's great. So I think we have 50, 60, 100 extensions. I don't know how many anymore. Paul probably knows better.
Yeah, it's definitely well over 60. Yeah.
Yeah, well, last time I looked, it was 60, but I'm sure it's more now. Right, so that's great, and we had that ecosystem enabled users to use extensions, but not everyone wants to go and compile those extensions, and we wanted to give the K6 users opportunity to trial extensions, especially those that are mature, and we plan to include them into the core. So the new way of including functionality into the core is that you create an extension, you use it for some time, some months, get feedback from users, and then you may apply to have that functionality merged into the core. So it's no longer an extension, it's the core functionality. But still, the threshold to make this happen has been quite high, because we need to make sure that the functionality is useful for many users and it doesn't have significant bugs. We really care deeply about quality of code. So it's been always a struggle to include code into the core from external developers. So the idea of experimental is that we will add it to the core, but under the K6/experimental path. So that means that we may change the functionality into the future. We don't commit to the APIs that we introduced. They may change. And therefore, we give all of the users opportunity to run the new experimental code, like WebSockets, for example, the new implementation, or Redis. And once we get feedback from users about problems they encountered, we can change the code. And once we are very happy with this, we can merge it into the core under the regular path, which is stable. And then we commit that the API won't change. And the code that users developed based on that functionality will continue working in the next release.
So when is that all happening? Tonight?
Mihail's on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, tonight.
And in the same vein, it seems like while K6 has its own extensions and we're working on tightening up the integrations there too, we're also ourselves a plugin for Grafana. So first we could only use the statsd output via InfluxDB to pipe results from K6 to Grafana. And then we had the K6 data source, which made it easier. And then now it's even easier than that, because we just have a K6 cloud app. Robin, do you think there will be a day where it won't even be a plugin and it'll just be like K6 is the load testing part of Grafana, and it's just going to come with every Grafana cloud?
Yeah, that's the intention. So even if K6 and several of the other products that Grafana offers are actually built on the same sort of app plugin platform, the intention is to make sure the user experience feels native. So it feels like it is all of it as a product suite feels cohesive, and it feels like all of the various products are part of a larger whole. Even if they are developed separately and they are actually just plugins to Grafana. So that's the intent over time.
Okay. And so we've talked about a few ways that we're integrating with Grafana. We talked about how internally we're moving over to using Grafana products as well. We talked about the Grafana app, and then Prometheus Remote Write, which is a Grafana project at least. And also, are there any, aside from the ones that are already in flight, are there any other integrations that are on the horizon that you can see, Robin, that maybe we should or could explore in the future?
So I think there's a lot of things. There's both the sort of like the server side observability stuff, right? So integrating with metrics, logs, and traces to again highlight more specifically where potential issues might lie on the side of the system that's being tested. But also, I think longer term, there's lots of interesting exploration to be done. I think in terms of weaving the larger management of quite complex software systems together across the software development lifecycle through, for example, the use of SLOs, for example, which is something that you can use both as a mechanism for, in combination with error budgets to do alerting, but it's also something that you can sort of pull back into the earlier parts of the software development lifecycle and use for validating that any new change that you're trying to push to your production systems aren't actually breaking those sort of contracts that you have, either sort of between you as a product solution and your customers, but also like individually between different sort of components of a larger systems, different services. So I think the larger story and how products that we build at Grafana Labs, how they can connect over the software development lifecycle is a very interesting story. So there's very, very sort of specific things in the short term in terms of K6 together with the observability data, but then also longer term, there's lots of exciting, I think, opportunities for integration.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely highlights it. I mean, the whole marriage between Grafana Labs and K6 was a pretty good one because, with the products and everything and that whole development life cycle, it all meshes really, really well.
Yeah, I think so as well, and I think the approaches of the companies as well to develop products based on open source and in the open was also very, very good fit, right?
Yeah. I mean, what about any kind of cultural gaps between the two companies? I mean, obviously we're still kind of separate yet together.
Yeah, I think naturally there's always differences, right? When you have two groups of people that have done things together for some duration of time, and also when you have an organization that's growing as fast as Grafana, there's going to be differences, of course. I think, and in terms of how closely people work, that also depends, I think, on like in which function and department you work. So there are certain people on the K6 side that naturally has had much more exposure to the wider sort of Grafana products and organization than some other people.
Right.
But hopefully, as we start working on these, I mean, we've already started doing lots more collaboration as we've started to do these different product integrations, and as we have joint sales cycle across different products that our customers want to buy, etc.
But I would still say that the cultural differences are very minimal. We fit within the Grafana very well. It was very natural. It didn't create any large problems where developers would decide that this is a bad fit. So we retain basically the entire team of K6, and I believe all of us are rather happy with the current situation. So I wouldn't say that there are major cultural differences. We have developed open source in K6, and we had a cloud offering. The same for Grafana, right? They developed a bunch of open source projects, and they had a cloud offering, and we valued open source just the same way. So I felt that this was very easy integration, and culturally it was very close.
Yeah. I'm just interested in what's going to happen with the kind of colors of the products. I mean, because Grafana is kind of orange based. K6 is kind of
all the hard
based.
questions.
I mean, right? I mean, you have dark mode, and what's it going to be? Orange or purple? Something in between, magenta, maybe. I don't know. Maybe like Pawel.
Hey, I'm okay with that.
Meet halfway, yeah.
I don't know. So we had those discussions, right? And it's a question that comes up quite often. I don't think we have an answer for this, and I don't necessarily my position, which is not authoritative, but I don't necessarily think that we have to choose. We have so many products in Grafana that have different logos, different mascots, different colors that. I don't necessarily think that we all need to choose one color for the platform. We have a complementary tools. We could have different colors.
Well, I mean, or is this maybe going to be one of those big, news events at Observability Con, which is coming? Is there going to be any kind of huge announcement?
The entire
Oh, I have
keynote is going to be
I have a thing for
in
that.
colors. Yeah.
If you'd
Yeah,
like to register for Observability Con and you happen to be in New York because it's going to be in person and apparently seats are limited, you can register at this link. We're going to actually, who is going to make announcements? You, I guess, Robin, and I think there was somebody else.
Yeah, there's from the K6 side. There's going to be Mark and Lukasz who are going to speak at Observability Con. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, nice
yeah, Lukasz is here as well.
And he was joining in on the debate over dark mode. So, see, again, everybody wants to know.
Yeah. I do agree, Pawel, that in terms of like the commitment to open source, that K6 and Grafana, I think that was a perfect match there. I do think, though, that there are definitely lots of cultural things to iron out, not just because they're so different or so incompatible or anything, but just from the sheer growth. Like Grafana has grown more than 3 times, I think, since we were acquired, more than triple what they were then. And I think, how many of us are there now?
Close to 1,000, I think.
Oh, right? Sorry, I mean K6.
K6, I think 53, 52 or 53. I think that's the case.
We're even still hiring, aren't we?
Yes. The recruitment team would not want me to miss this. We are hiring. We need backend developers that are proficient in Python. We need front-end developers that are excellent at React. And we need Go engineers that can come and work on the K6 core. So please apply.
Well, and even more importantly,
I think you missed the most important.
The director for DevRel. I don't know. So they got to be nice to us.
Yeah. So we were 30 when I joined, Pawel. So it's almost double, even on the K6 side. But also some of our teams have begun to move over to within the Grafana organizational structure. So we're definitely like in transition, right? Yes, definitely some growing pains for sure. We have a few comments. Ambrish has his priorities straight. Let's talk about K6 swag now. Yep. We need K6 polos.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's more of a Leandro question.
I was going to say we forgot one C-level person here in this group, the CSO, the Chief Swag Officer, Leandro.
We have a serious comment from John Walker. I'm happy that we will see tighter integration between K6 and Grafana. We use the full Grafana stack, and our load tests reach hundreds of thousands of concurrent users. Observability is key.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, exactly.
They really go hand in hand, right?
Yeah, this is perfect use case for someone that is already using Grafana products. Add K6 for load testing would deliver so much value, right? Because not only that you run a load test and you have the result of the load test, but you can marry the results from other Grafana products like logs and traces in the background, create a new Grafana dashboard for that and observe the system from the outside and from the inside, which like speeds up the time to find problems like tremendously. The value of this is great.
Yeah, I'd be curious if they're using the K6 app for Grafana, since they are using the full stack.
And Robin, I know we talked. Sorry. Robin, I know we talked about this earlier when we were acquired. What happens if someone doesn't use Grafana, for example, or what if they use Grafana but not K6? We said that it would still, we weren't going to lock people into anything. Is that still the case now, or I guess is that still the plan?
Lock someone into, you mean? But I guess the question is like, for how long is K6 Cloud going to be around, right? That's the question, you mean? Or I think that would be the
not necessarily, not just K6 Cloud, but I mean, like, what if they don't want to use Grafana as their observability stack, the Grafana suite?
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, we there's two different ways, right? If you prefer to use something else besides Grafana, and of course, then it's up to us to be competitive and provide the best experience for you. But K6 open source still has lots of different output options. So if you prefer to send stuff to InfluxDB or New Relic, CloudWatch, Datadog, whatever have you that we support, you can still, of course, do that. And then we have our functionality in K6 Cloud, which we'll see. I mean, this is TBD, and I can't really speak to this with authority either. But this is something we'll have to look at. But we have a feature that we refer to as an APM integration in K6 Cloud, which also allows you to sort of pipe off or fork off the metrics that we collect in a K6 Cloud test to different observability solutions. So we'll likely keep on working on that in some shape or form once we have sort of full integration with Grafana Cloud. So yeah, and this also I think is something that's very similar between talking about similarities between sort of K6, the K6 company and Grafana. There's sort of like big tent philosophy and view, right? That you're part of a larger ecosystem. It's not just about you and your product.
That's one of the ways where, that's one of the ways where I think the cultural values of both companies, now just one company, but that really has meshed well, because we at K6 have always felt that way as well. Pawel, is it okay to share the vision of K6?
The vision. So I think we alluded to this earlier, right? So I believe that K6 is not limited just to load testing. I want it to be a reliability testing platform, which means that we should provide different types of tests within the K6 tool. And we are maybe not going to announce exactly what they are going to be, because a big announcement is coming on ObservabilityCon. So I encourage people to sign up and look out for the new cool stuff. But of course, we know about the browser testing product or browser testing functionality. So that's coming in. We already have some functional testing capabilities with Chai.js and other libraries like that. And a few others, or a couple of others, are coming soon.
So K6 has always prided itself on providing the best developer experience. Do you think that is going to change, or has it changed recently since the acquisition?
No, I think that's the core value that we hold in K6, that the developer experience, this hammer or this screwdriver that you hold in your hand, the experience of using it is so good. And I think this is why K6 won or became so popular and so good, because we really focused on experience of the end user rather than just adding tons of functionality or integrations or whatever people would want. We focused primarily on developer experience, and that hasn't changed. It's as strong as ever, because that's probably one of the major reasons why K6 succeeded.
And we do have a comment or a question. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Paul.
No. You got it. We were thinking the same thing. Go ahead.
Yeah, we spent too much time together, I think. Mathieu Leroux was saying that he is new to these sessions. Welcome, Mathieu. He does have a question about pushing for adoption of performance testing tools within dev squads. We're coming up with a series of initiatives to trigger this culture shift. I'm curious, what would you recommend to convince devs to use K6 and make it easier for them?
Right. Yeah. So this is perfect question for this exact tool, right?
Mhm.
So K6 is built for developers. It is providing the best developer experience, meaning that users that are programmers, users that are technical, find it very nice to use. And yeah, just go to documentation and start using it. There are many different tools for load testing and performance testing out there. Many of them are focused on the entire market, so they try to cater to everyone. And by doing this, I would say that they not necessarily cater to anyone specifically, so they are not really targeting any single user group like K6 is, and therefore they don't really deliver on those promises. And K6, of course, is used by QA engineers and so on, but it is primarily used by developers, right? So the people that build applications, they also add load tests and functional tests to use K6.
I would also say that maybe the way that you could try to convince them is to get them to think of load tests as code. It hasn't always been the case. There are a lot of load testing tools out there that you need an interface to be able to use, and that can make it a little bit more difficult. But there really is no reason, like with K6, scripts are written in JavaScript, so you can version your scripts and share it and put it in GitHub repos or whatever you're using the way you're doing with your application code. And I think this standardization of code between testing and application development is a positive thing for both sides.
And then
I would.
another follow-up. Whoop, sorry, go ahead, Ruff.
No, I was just going to add, and if the issue might be that the developers don't sort of buy in or understand why they should do performance testing or load testing. I think it's, as with any testing, it sort of removes one of the potential sort of concerns with making changes to customer facing systems. So I think like it's always useful to explain the value why you're doing something. And then, of course, like our hope is that the experience of using K6 will feel very native to a developer and less foreign than some of the other sort of solutions that exist in the market, which target other types of users.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. But yeah, and then Embrush commented there about how he convinced his dev team by showing them the demos and just how easy it is to incorporate into your pipeline and your whole build CI/CD pipeline. Yeah, I mean that can't be overstated. Honestly, is to be able to have that automation for just a process of continuous improvement. That way, then, if you bring in something that regresses the performance of your application, hopefully you're in your pipeline you're catching that type of a thing so that you can catch it early before it starts costing you a lot of money when it's post-production.
I also, Pawel, actually, while you're here, I've always thought that I've wished that maybe we could soften the whole developer experience thing, because I can code, but I don't consider myself primarily a developer. I think that maybe something like the best engineering experience might be more inclusive, perhaps, especially since we are getting into a lot of functional testing things, and a lot of QA or a lot of testers may not necessarily identify as developers.
Yeah, that's true. We have performance testers using K6, or many of them now use K6, right? And I think as our industry is maturing, those roles that prior to maybe year 2010 had no expectation of being programmers. Now there is an expectation that a performance tester knows how to program, and that is changing, right? So we now call many different roles engineers because many roles that we have require programming. Prior to maybe year 2000, we testers didn't really need to program at all. They were manual testers, but I think that doesn't really exist anymore. And testers now have to do at least unit testing and automation. So it's true, but the definitions of engineer and a programmer also change. So I think that's evolving over time.
So how far into functional testing are we going to go? I mean, this is not something like I can totally understand why we'd go further into the observability side, more towards the right, like towards Grafana stuff. But functional testing is a little bit of a different thing that Grafana hasn't really gotten into yet. We already have, K6 Chai.js, we have XK6 browser. We have talked about contract testing as a use case potentially. I mean, are we going to go full tilt into this?
So contract testing is another pet project of mine that actually is working in K6. We just haven't really said anything about it anywhere. But I think the question if K6 should be a functional testing product is kind of answered by our community, because the community is using it this way. So we know that there are many users that run just one iteration with one VU tests. They just verify functionality. So they want to make sure that the system is working. They don't use it for load testing, and it's a surprising amount of users that don't use K6 for load testing. So we just need to recognize it and document how to do this properly within K6. So in a way, K6 being an open source tool, we don't really have a control over how users use it. So if we really wanted them to use it for load testing only, we cannot do that. That's already a reality. It belongs to the community in a way.
I know, Robin, I think maybe the last time that we had you on office hours, we were talking, I think, about XK6 browser and how there's so much that we could do with XK6 browser, including Lighthouse type metrics and all that. And if we get to that point, like accessibility is like the next step away. How far do you see us going down that rabbit hole?
I don't know if I see it as a rabbit hole. I think like we're always going to strive towards providing additional value and removing time that our users have to spend with different sort of steps when it comes to testing, and of course like testing plus observability. So anything really that we can do to make, in this case we're talking about result analysis. If we can make result analysis easier, I would say there's a good chance we're gonna evaluate if we think whatever it might be, like Lighthouse metrics, integration with Grafana telemetry data products, or whatever it might be. But the important thing is that we will always try to prioritize amongst all of these things which particular feature we should spend time on that can provide the most value at any given point. But I think all of those things are interesting for sure, and it will help users understand the performance of their system faster, or the capacity of their system, or understand the accessibility potentially eventually of their sort of client facing application.
I also wanted to answer this question from Ambrish. I'm dealing with the same question for contract testing because now I'm using Postman. But if this can be done through K6, it would be awesome. I wanted to mention it because if you haven't watched this awesome video yet where we talk about how you can already use Postman and K6, you definitely should. We go into detail on that. And I think that really is worth watching. So you can already use those two tools together. But yeah, maybe we can work on shoring up K6 on the contract testing side. Or when I say we, I really mean Pawel.
Since he's already got it working, right?
Maybe I can post the link too, and you can
Awesome.
publish it, because there are examples of how to do API contract testing with K6.
Oh, this is really good to know because we've gotten this question a few times too. Okay, well, we are running out of time, but just as a last thing, we have a very important question that came from the internal K6 team. How do you cut your pizza?
Scissors. Is there any other way?
Yes, with a knife. Like
even a question?
Most people.
This is disturbing. If someone doesn't know this, when I joined K6, and I've noticed Robin taking scissors and cutting pizza with scissors, I was so disturbed that I was wondering if I made the right decision.
Yeah, I gotta say it's
final
weird
question in all our hiring processes.
Uh-huh.
How do you cut your pizza? Very, very important question to answer right.
Oops, I'm glad you didn't ask me that. Okay, well, thank you both for joining us. It's really cool to catch up with you both regularly about how things are going, especially after this last year has had a lot of changes, generally very positive, lots of pivots and different things that have happened with the teams, as well as we get to know our new Grafanista colleagues. But thank you for both joining me on a Friday afternoon. And you too, I guess,
Paul. Thank you so much. Thanks for hosting.
Next week, we actually have our technical content writer, Matt Dodson, joining us to talk about Performance Testing 101. If there's anything that there are many things that Matt is an expert on, but he is an expert in asking questions that everybody else misses. No joke. He's really talented in that regard. In particular, he's going to be asking about questions about performance and load and reliability testing from the point of view of a beginner. So that should be a really fun one to do. Thank you, everybody, for watching us, and I guess we'll see you next week.
Yep. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.